All right, today we are moving on to factoring the sum or difference of cubes. And so basically we're looking at this area of the notes right here. We already pretty much talked about this in the previous days. All right, so let me write down an example, and you should write this as well. It'll actually be number 1 of the worksheet I gave you. So I'm working out number 1 for you. So our example would be example 1 be x cubed plus 27. Okay, so this is the sum of cubes. Now let's walk through the notes here. First, how do we know perfect cubes? I've provided a list for you right there. Okay. So if you're having difficulty, you can just look right here in this section, and that'll let you know that those are perfect cubes. Okay, perfect cubes also come in 3s in the exponent. So you see 3, 6, 9, and 12. You'll just be dealing with cubed at this point. All right, and so how do we do this? Let's walk this through. All right, so first thing, excuse me, we'll end up having a binomial, and we'll end up having a trinomial. So when you're looking at sum of cubes, you see here, this is a perfect cube, and this is a perfect cube. There's your 27. Okay, so you're going to have 2 sets of parentheses. You're going to have a binomial with 2 terms in it, and you're going to have a trinomial with 3 terms in it. So how do we find the binomial? Well, let's walk through the directions here. It says cube root the first term. So we would cube root that. And let's do that. Cube root looks like that. It's just like a square root, but it has the little 3 right there just before it. And I'll show you how to do that on the calculator in just a second here. And then you cube root the 27. Okay. Let's go look at the calculator now so we know what we're doing. All you do is hit in your calculator. You're not going to be on this screen. You're going to just be on the regular blank screen with the cursor. So you will hit the number 3. Then you will go to second, and then this key right here. You can kind of see it right there. It's the little box in the square root. That'll put the 3 in the box. It'll be a small 3, and then it'll give you your square root symbol, and then you put your number underneath. In this case, it will be 27. Okay. So what's just like a square root, a cube root, it's going to cancel that. Right, so we'll have x, and then the cube root of 27 is 3. Okay, so we have x plus 3. But now we need a trinomial. Whenever you're doing this, you're going to have a binomial and you're going to have a trinomial. So now we need 3 terms over here. So how do we get that? I'm going to tell you. So right here, first we start. Well, the notes tell you right here. It says square the first term. So what is the first term here? It's x. So we have x squared. Going back to the notes. Then it says multiply the 2 terms together and change the sign. Okay, so we have a 3 and an x. So 3 times x is 3x, right? And then you change the sign, so that'll be negative, because that would have been a positive 3x. So we change it to a negative 3x. And then the last one is square the second term. So everything is based off of this one. So we're going to square that term. 3 squared is 9. Plus 9. And really, that's it, folks. That's how you do it. So you'll hear some people refer to this as SOAP. So it's, let's write this, SOAP. That means this sign right here is always the same. This sign right here is opposite. And this sign is AP, always positive. That's why you're here to refer it as SOAP. So again, square the first term. It's going to keep the same sign. Next, multiply the two terms together. 3 times x is 3x. And then you're going to have the opposite sign. And then you're going to square the last term, which gives you 9. And that's always positive. So this should always be positive right here. And as you can see, once you do all that, we're left with our factors. Okay, let's do another example. We'll get to solving these, but I'll go to the other sheet to solve it. Here is example 2. So we have x cubed minus 125. All right, we know we're going to have a binomial, and we know we'll have a trinomial. Step 1, cubed root, cubed root. That gives us x, and then the cubed root of 125 is 5. And then we're keeping our sign there. That was a negative 125, so this is going to be a negative 5. All right, so how do we get the terms for the trinomial? First, square that. So that gives us x squared. We're going to keep the same sign. Then what do? We multiply the two terms together. That'll give us should be a negative 5x. But remember, you changed the sign, so it's going to be a positive 5x. And then the last term is to square this, and it's always positive. So that should be plus 25. This isn't that hard, especially since you have your notes. I mean, it should essentially tell you exactly how to do this stuff. Let's do one more example before we go to the other sheet. So we'll do example 3. We'll do it a little bit different. We got 8x cubed minus 27. So the difference here is we have a number out in front. Is that a perfect cube? Yes, it is. Is that a perfect cube? Yes, it is. When you have a number out front here, you always want to look at it and see, okay, is there a GCF? Is there something that will go into both of these? No, there's not. Okay, so we'll just keep it moving. So we're following the steps the exact same way. And we should, of course, have, let's change our ink color here, a binomial and a trinomial. So what's always the first step? First step is to cube root that. So in your calculator, you're going to do the cube root of 8. All right, cubed root of 8. That is a 2. And then obviously the cube root of x cubed would be x. Then you're going to take the cubed root of 27, and that's going to become, or it's a minus 27, so it's going to be a minus 3. All right, how do we get our trinomial? You take this one right here and you square it. So 2 squared is 4. X squared is x squared. And you keep the sign. That's a positive 2x, so it's going to be a positive 4x. Next, what do? We're just following notes here, guys. Multiply the two terms together and change the sign. So negative 3 times 2x, that would be a negative 6x, so we change it to a positive 6x. And then the last one is to take this and square it. That's a 3 squared, and we know it's always going to be positive. So 3 squared is 9. All right. Let's move on to this. So this says find solutions. Find your solutions. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to fill in all my work because we literally just did this. So that cubed root, we had x minus 3. This was one of the examples we just did, guys. X squared plus 3x plus 9. So if we want solutions, clearly all we're doing is solving it, right? So we take the first set here, set that equal to 0. So x minus 3 is equal to 0. Then we plus 3, it cancels. X is equal to 3. So there's one solution. All right. Then here, what do we have? We can factor this, right? Or can we factor that? Can we figure out two numbers that multiply to give you 9 and then still add or subtract together to give you 3? No. If you're not sure, put it in PolySolve and see if that will just give you the factors or the solutions. If not, then you got to use the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is opposite of b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, and so we're going to have to apply the quadratic formula here. So first, let's identify a. A is 1. We're getting that by the coefficients. That's a 1, that's a 3, and that's a 9. So b is 3, and then c is 9. So quadratic formula. That means opposite of b is negative 3 plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Let's fill in. B is 3. A is 1. C is 9. And then A is 1. And so I always tell you guys, figure out what you have underneath there first. Okay? Got to figure that out first thing. And when you do that, let's kind of section this off a little bit. When you do that, you're going to have negative 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 27 will be under there, and this will be on 2. 2 times 1 is 2. All right, now we know we have a negative underneath here, so we know that has to come out as an I. So we know we're going to have an I out front, and then you just take the square root of 27, which will be 3, radical 3, but we know we have an I out there, so we'll have negative 3 plus or minus 3I, radical 3, and that's over 2. And if we split that, can it simplify? Can you simplify negative 3 over 2? No. Can you simplify a 3 over 2? No. So that means we can leave it like that. So here is our other solution. So we have x equals 3, and we have x is equal to opposite, or negative 3 plus or minus 3i radical 3 over 2. Seems like a lot, but it just takes practice, guys. So there's your one solution, and then remember, when you have a plus or a minus, that's 2 more. So that goes with our exponent of 3. We should have 3 solutions. 2 here, 1 there. All right. I would expect, or you should expect, to be using the quadratic formula, because on these you're going to need that more than once. All right, next example I'm going to do is number 4. This might be the last example I'm going to do. Yeah, it is. And I'm going to do that one because is 32 a perfect cube? Let's go back. No, not in there. And we're working with cubes. Okay, and so, I wonder what it could be. Is 108 a perfect cube? No, that's also not a perfect cube. And so it's probably because there's a GCF. What is the GCF? Does 32 divide evenly into 108? No, it doesn't. And so now you have to break down your factors of 32. If you don't know the factors of 32, just divide up, and you'll get all your whole numbers, and those will be your factors. Actually, let me break it down for you. So factors of 32. A little T chart. And so I take a 1 divided by 32, that's a whole number. We know 2 will go into there. That'll give us a 16. Does 3 go in there? No, it doesn't. What about 4? It does. 4 and an 8. What about 5? We know 5 doesn't go in. 6 also doesn't go in. What about 7? 7 doesn't go in. And so once you get back to a point that you already have something in the list, our next number would be 8. You know you have all your factors of 32. We already tried 32 into 108. Let's try 16. 16 doesn't go. 8 doesn't go. What about 4? 4 does go. And so you know your GCF is 4. And so we have, where do we want to write this? Let's write it here. 4. Now we should have a binomial inside. How do we get that? 32 divided by 4. Our 32 x cubed divided by 4 would be 8 x cubed. Divide that by 4. That'd be minus 27. So now, do we have a difference of cubes inside? Is 8 a perfect cube? Let's go back to our list. Yes. Is 27 a perfect cube? Yes, it is. Okay. So now we can do the entire process that we just learned how to do just on this information here. So how do we do that? First step was cubed root of that, cubed root of that. Cubed root of 8 is, let's keep our GCF out here, 2. Then you'd have x. Right, and then the cubed root of 27 would be 3. Now we need our trinomial. Hopefully we have enough space here. So what do? We square that. So 2 squared is 4. X squared is x squared. Then you take these, multiply them together. Negative 3 times 2x would be a negative 6x. Well, remember, we're going to change the sign, opposite sign, so that's a plus 6x. and then square this. That'll give you what? 9. It's always positive, plus 9. Now we want solutions. So how do we do that? We set all our factors to 0 and solve, or we just factor the trinomial. So let's start here. 4, if you set that equal to 0, doesn't make sense, so that's gone. Now we set this factor equal to 0, and that would be 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. We solve, add 3 there, add 3 there, that cancels. 2x is equal to 3. Then you divide by 2, divide by 2. X is equal to 3 over 2. All right, so we have one solution right there. We need 2 more, right? Can we factor this? Let's find out. I would put it in polysolve and see if you can factor it. In this case, you can't. No sense in trying to figure out if it can factor or not when you have polysolve to check it. So check it with polysolve, see if it can factor. It can't. It's going to give you a fraction with, decimal and all that kind of stuff. And so now we know we're going to use the quadratic formula. So quadratic formula is, let's identify, we got A is equal, guys, don't write up in number 2 like I am. Obviously, you're going to need that space for number 2. Okay, so A is equal to 4, B is equal to 6, C is equal to 9. So let's do our quadratic formula. So we got opposite of B would be negative 6 plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. So B is 6, A is 4, C is 9, and then A is 4. Next step, figure out what you have underneath the radical. So you're not going to put the radical on it, just type this part underneath it in your calculator and see what's left underneath. And that will give you a negative 108 underneath. So let's rewrite this here. Negative 6 plus or minus radical negative 108. Then 2 times 4 is 8. So we know that that negative has to come out as an I, and then we'll take the square root of 108, which becomes 6 radical 3. And so we know we'll have a negative 6 plus or minus. We said it's a 6. We know the I came out, and then radical 3 over 8. All right, running out of space here. Little awkward with me writing this on my iPad, but you should have more space on your sheet, and you can erase and do all that kind of stuff too. So now we simplify. So that means we have to separate this. Let me do that over here in this area. Again, don't use up your space like I am. Use a scratch paper if you have to, or just kind of just be a little bit more organized than I am. All right, so let's split that. So we have a negative 6 over 8 plus or minus 6i radical 3 over 8. Remember, you never touch what's underneath the radical. So really, we're just looking at these numbers here and these numbers here. And then see if you can simplify. Just type the fraction in your calculator exactly like that. And you'll see that that simplifies down to negative 3 over 4 plus or minus, obviously 6 over 8 is going to be the same thing, but this time you won't have the negative, so it'll be 3 radical 3 over 4. And that's what x is equal to. So there's your other solutions. All right, so 2 solutions are right here. That's really all you need to do the rest of the problems. I mean, it's pretty straightforward for you. And then the back is, let's see, that's just like the stuff. That's more practice from the stuff like yesterday. All right, so remember, look for the GCF. Show you one more time in the calculator. If you want the cube root, you have to do the 3 first. So on a blank screen, type 3, go up to second, and this x to the box, which should put that 3 in the box there. So it'll be a small 3 in front of the square root symbol. All right, let me know if you have any questions. I'll be available most of the day.